The cold hit me first. Not the anger, not the fear, not even the betrayal. Just the raw, shocking cold of a November night in Chicago, pressing against my bare arms like a warning. I had been standing on the porch for maybe 10 seconds, but it felt like an hour. The door had closed behind me with a soft click, and then I heard the deadbolt turn. That sound. That final, absolute sound. The sound of a man who thought he had won. My name is Nora Bennett, and for 15 years I had been married to a man named Derek, who collected cruelties the way other men collected watches. Small cruelties, the kind you could explain away. A comment here, a silence there, a hand on your arm just a little too tight when no one was looking. He never hit me, not once. He was too smart for that. Derek was a lawyer, a good one, the kind who knew exactly where the line was drawn and how to stand with his toes pressed against it without ever crossing over. He knew that bruises healed, but scars on the inside lasted forever. He knew that a word could cut deeper than a knife and that a word left no evidence. The fight had started over nothing. That was how it always started. I had asked him about dinner, a simple question, a harmless question, and he had looked at me with that flat, dead expression he wore when he was about to remind me of my place. "You know what your problem is, Nora," he said, not looking up from his phone. "You think everything revolves around you, what's for dinner, what time you'll be home, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. Newsflash. I don't think about you at all." I should have been used to it by then. 15 years of comments like that. 15 years of being slowly, methodically erased. 15 years of waking up next to a man who looked at me like I was furniture. Comfortable, familiar, and completely replaceable. But something about that night was different. Maybe it was the way he said it. Maybe it was the way he didn't even bother to look at me. Maybe it was the way I looked at my reflection in the dark window and saw a woman I didn't recognize anymore, a woman who had been reduced to a shadow, a maid, a warm body in his bed, a woman who had once been sharp and funny and full of plans and who now asked permission to buy groceries. So I said something back. I don't even remember what it was, something small, something defiant, something that made him put down his phone and look at me with eyes that had gone dark, the color of storm clouds, the color of a man who was used to getting his way. "Get out," he said. "Excuse me." I said get out, go stand on the porch. Think about who pays for this roof over your head. Think about who buys your food, your car, your clothes. Maybe when you remember, you can come back inside. I thought he was joking. I laughed. It was a nervous laugh, the kind you make when you're not sure if someone is serious but you hope they're not. He didn't laugh. He walked to the front door, opened it wide, and gestured toward the cold like a butler welcoming a guest to hell. "Go on," he said. "I'll let you back in when you're ready to apologize." I didn't move. So he took my arm, not hard enough to bruise, just hard enough to steer, and guided me to the door. Then he pushed me. Not a shove, just a nudge, just enough to send me stumbling onto the porch. And then he closed the door, and I heard the deadbolt turn, and the cold hit me like a slap across the face. I stood there for a long moment, shivering in my thin sweater, my phone still inside on the kitchen counter. No coat, no keys, no shoes, just the thin cotton socks I had been wearing around the house. The porch was dark. The street was empty. The wind was picking up, carrying the smell of snow and the sound of distant traffic. And somewhere behind that locked door, my husband was waiting for me to break, waiting for me to cry, waiting for me to beg, waiting for me to become small again so he could feel big. That was his mistake. You see, Derek had been locking me out of things for years. Not doors, not literally. But he had locked me out of our finances, out of our decisions, out of any sense that this marriage was a partnership rather than a dictatorship. He had locked me out of my own confidence, my own ambition, my own identity. He had locked me out of bank accounts, out of conversations with his lawyer, out of the will he had rewritten without telling me. He had locked me out of my own life, piece by piece, year by year, until I was standing outside a door that used to be mine, wearing socks and a sweater and nothing else. But he had never locked me out of a door before, not literally, and that small act, that petty, cruel, stupid act, woke something up in me, something that had been sleeping for a very long time, something that had been hibernating through 15 winters of neglect and abuse, something that stretched its arms and opened its eyes and said, "Enough." I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I didn't knock. I didn't even look back at the door. I just turned around, walked down the porch steps and started walking. The cold was brutal. My socks were soaked through within minutes, the wet fabric clinging to my feet like ice wraps. My arms were covered in goosebumps. My teeth were chattering so hard I thought they might crack like glass. The wind cut through my says, wheater like it wasn't even there. But I kept walking. I walked 3 blocks, then 4, then 5. I walked past houses with warm lights in the windows, families eating dinner, couples watching television. Normal lives. Lives that didn't involve being locked out in November. I walked until I reached the 24-hour diner where I used to go before I got married, back when I was still someone who could sit alone in a booth and not feel like she was being watched. The bell on the door jingled when I walked in. Warm air hit my face like a blessing. The smell of coffee and bacon and old grease wrapped around me like a blanket. The waitress, a woman named Rosa who had been working there since I was in college, who had watched me grow from a 20-year-old art student into a 35-year-old woman who had forgotten how to laugh, took one look at me and didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. She had seen women like me before. She had been a woman like me before. She just brought me a cup of coffee, a blanket from the back, and the old rotary phone they kept behind the counter for emergencies. "Who are you calling?" she asked, her voice soft and steady. "Everyone," I said. I called my sister first. Miriam answered on the 3rd ring, her voice groggy with sleep. "Nora, it's midnight. What's wrong?" "He locked me out, Mira. No coat, no shoes, no phone. See, it's November." There was a pause. Then I heard her get out of bed. I heard her wake up her husband. I heard her start to cry, not sad tears, but furious ones. "Where are you? I'm coming." I gave her the address. Then I called my mother. Then I called a lawyer I had met at a women's shelter fundraiser 3 years ago, a woman named Helen Voss, who had given me her card and said, "If you ever need me, don't wait." I had kept that card in my wallet for 3 years. I had looked at it 100 times, running my thumb over the embossed letters, wondering if I would ever be brave enough to make the call. And now, finally, I used it. Helen answered on the 2nd ring. Her voice was clear and alert, the voice of someone who had been waiting by the phone for a call exactly like this one. "It's Nora Bennett," I said. "You told me not to wait. I'm not waiting anymore." "What happened?" "He locked me out of the house. No coat, no phone, no shoes. It's November. There was no fight. There was no reason. He just wanted to watch me break." There was a pause. I could hear Helen breathing, could almost hear her thinking, could almost see the wheels turning behind her eyes. Then she said, "Where are you now?" "The diner on Grand, the 24-hour one. Stay there. Don't move. Don't talk to him if he calls. Don't could answer his texts. I'm coming." She arrived in 20 minutes. By then, my sister had shown up with a coat and boots and a fury that matched my own. My mother was on her way from Ohio, driving through the night with her own rage burning like headlights. And I had started making a list. A long, detailed, beautiful list of everything Derek had ever done, every insult, every manipulation, every financial document he had hidden from me, every bank account I wasn't allowed to access, every time he had made me feel like I was nothing, every time he had reminded me that I was just a housewife, while he was the one who actually contributed. Helen read the list. She looked at me. She said, "Do you know how much the house is worth?" "No," I admitted. "He never told me. He said it wasn't my concern." "Do you know about the offshore accounts? The second mortgage he took out without your signature? The life insurance policy he purchased on you without your knowledge or consent?" My blood went cold. Not the cold of November. The cold of truth. The cold of a woman who had just realized that the man she had shared a bed with for 15 years had been planning for her death. "No," I whispered. Helen smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a woman who had spent 30 years taking down men like Derek, and who knew exactly how to do it. It was the smile of a predator who had finally found her prey. Then let me tell you everything, and then let me show you how we're going to take him for every penny he's worth. I spent that night at my sister's house. I slept in her guest room, in her daughter's old bed, wrapped in blankets that smelled like lavender and safety, and the kind of love that doesn't come with conditions. I did not check my phone. I did not wonder if Derek was worried. I knew he wasn't. I knew he was sitting in that house, drinking his expensive whiskey, watching some late-night show, waiting for me to come crawling back, rehearsing the speech he would give me about how I had overreacted, how I was being dramatic, how this was all my fault. I knew him better than he knew himself, and that knowledge was going to be my weapon. He didn't know that I had already called a divorce lawyer. He didn't know that I had already started the process of freezing our joint accounts. He didn't know that I had already sent a formal request for all financial documents to his accounting firm, copied to the State Bar Association. He didn't know that I had been keeping a journal for 12 years. 12 years of his cruelties, his manipulations, his betrayals. And that journal was about to become Exhibit A in the case that would end him. The next morning, I walked into the house like I owned it, because legally, I owned half of it. Derek was in the kitchen, drinking coffee, pretending to read the newspaper. He was wearing his expensive robe and his expensive slippers, looking like a man who had never known a moment of doubt in his entire life. He looked up when I walked in. His face was carefully neutral, the face of a man who had already decided how this conversation was going to go, who had already written the script in his head. "Finally," he said. "Ready to apologize?" I set my phone on the counter. I opened the voice memo app, and I said, "No, Derek, I'm ready to destroy you." He laughed. That was his second mistake. His first was locking the door. His second was underestimating me. "Destroy me," he said, setting down his coffee cup with a deliberate clink. "With what? You have nothing. You are nothing. I made you. I can unmake you. Who's going to believe you? You're a housewife. I'm a lawyer. I know every judge in this city. I know every trick in the book. You can't touch me, Nora. You never could." I pulled out Helen's card and set it on the counter next to my phone. "This is Helen Voss. She's the best divorce attorney in the state. She specializes in high-net-worth divorces involving financial abuse and coercive control. She has a 98% success rate, and she has already reviewed our financial records. All of them, including the ones you thought I didn't know about." Derek's face flickered. Just for a moment. A tiny muscle twitched near his eye. But I saw it. I saw everything. "You're bluffing," he said, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. "Am I? Then you won't mind if I mention the offshore account in the Caymans, the one you opened in 2019, the one with $420,000 that should have been marital property. The one you didn't tell me about because you knew I would ask questions you didn't want to answer." His face went pale. Not pale. Grey. The colour of a man who had just realised the trap was already closed, that the walls were already moving in, that there was no escape. "How do you—" "I know everything, Derek. I know about the life insurance policy you took out on me without my signature. I know about the second mortgage you took out on the house without my knowledge. I know about the credit cards you opened in my name that I never authorized. I know about the affair you've been having with your paralegal, Jessica, for the past 2 years. I know about the texts, the hotel receipts, the gifts you bought her with our money. I know about the trips you took while you told me you were at conferences. I know everything." He stood up. His chair scraped against the floor with a sound like fingernails on a chalkboard. His hands were shaking. His face was red. For a moment, I thought he might hit me. I almost wished he would, because if he hit me, it would be over. The police would come. The restraining order would be automatic. The divorce would be a foregone conclusion. The jury would see the bruises and they would believe me without question. But he didn't hit me. He was too smart for that. He was too careful. He had spent his entire life staying just on the right side of the line, and he wasn't about to cross it now. He just stood there, breathing hard, his eyes burning with a rage he couldn't express and couldn't hide. "What do you want?" he asked finally, his voice barely a whisper. "I want half of everything," I want the house. I want alimony. I want the offshore account. I want the life insurance policy cancelled. I want full custody of the dog. And I want you to sign the papers by the end of the week. Or what? Or I take this to court. And I show the judge the journal I've been keeping for 12 years. Every insult, every manipulation, every time you locked me out, metaphorically and now literally. I show them the texts from Jessica, the hotel receipts, the bank records, the forged signatures, and I watch as they take you for everything you have, everything you are, and everything you ever pretended to be. He didn't sign that week. He held out for 3 weeks. He hired the most expensive lawyers in the city. He tried to intimidate me. He tried to threaten me. He tried to convince me that I would lose, that I had no case, that no judge would believe a hysterical woman who had been overreacting for 12 years. He sent his lawyers to depose me, to question me, to try to catch me in a lie. He had me followed. He had my phone tapped. He did everything he could to find something, anything that he could use against me. But Helen was better than his lawyers. She had been doing this longer. She had seen men like Derek 1,000 times, and she knew exactly how to beat them. And the evidence was overwhelming. The journal alone was enough. 12 years of entries, dated and detailed, describing every incident of abuse, every manipulation, every financial betrayal. The bank records were enough. The texts from Jessica were enough. The hotel receipts were enough. The forged signatures on the life insurance policy were more than enough. When Derek realized that I had copies of everything, every email, every bank statement, every text message, every hotel receipt, every credit card charge, he finally gave up. His lawyers advised him to settle. His friends advised him to settle. Even his mother, who had never liked me, advised him to settle. There was no way out. There was no winning. There was only damage control. He signed the papers on a Tuesday. He moved out of the house on Wednesday. And on Thursday, I changed the locks. Not because I was afraid of him. He was too broken to hurt me anymore, but because I wanted to hear that sound again, the deadbolt turning, and know that this time, I was the one holding the key. This time, I was the one who decided who came in and who stayed out. This time, I was the one with the power. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. I got the house. I got the alimony. I got the offshore account. I got the dog. I got everything I asked for and more. Derek got a 1-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood he used to make fun of, a reputation in tatters, and a paralegal who left him the moment his money ran dry. Jessica didn't love him. She never had. She loved his credit card and his expense account, and his promises of a better life. When those promises evaporated, so did she. I heard through mutual friends that Derek started drinking, that he lost his job at the law firm, that he tried to sue me twice more and lost both times, that he told anyone who would listen that I had ruined his life, that I had been planning this for years, that I was a monster in a cardigan. He wasn't wrong about one thing. I had been planning for years, not consciously, not deliberately, not with any kind of malice or forethought. But somewhere deep inside, somewhere in the part of me that refused to be completely broken, I had been collecting evidence, keeping records, building a case. Not because I knew I would need it, but because I needed to remind myself that I wasn't crazy, that the things he did were real, that I wasn't the problem, that there was a world outside his version of events, and in that world, he was the villain. The last time I saw Derek was at a gas station, 2 years after the divorce. I was on my way back from a gallery opening, my gallery, the one I had bought with my settlement money, the one that was finally turning a profit. He was pumping gas into a beat-up sedan that looked like it was held together with duct tape and hope. He looked old, worn. His clothes were rumpled, his eyes were empty. He had lost weight, but not in a healthy way. His hair was thinning. His face was lined. He looked like a man who had been living in a cave, surviving on spite and cheap whiskey. He didn't see me at first. He was staring at the numbers on the pump like they held some kind of answer, like if he stared long enough, they would tell him where it all went wrong. I could have walked away. I should have walked away. Every instinct told me to get back in my car and drive, but something made me approach him. Something that felt like closure or curiosity, or maybe just the cruel satisfaction of seeing the man who had locked me out in the cold now standing in the cold himself. "Derek," I said. He looked up. For a moment, he didn't recognize me. I had changed. My hair was different. My clothes were different. My face was different, lighter, softer, younger. I looked like the woman I had been before I met him, before he spent 15 years trying to erase me. Then his face twisted, through confusion, through recognition, through something that looked almost like grief. "Nora," he said. His voice was hoarse, the voice of a man who had yelled at too many empty rooms. "You look good." "I am good," I said, and I meant it. For the first time in 15 years, I meant it with my whole heart. He nodded slowly, his eyes scanning my face like he was trying to memorize it, or maybe like he was trying to find the woman he had married. "I heard you bought a gallery, that you're showing art again." "I am. It's called The Locked Door. It's a gallery for women artists, survivors mostly, women who have been locked out of one thing or another." Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe, or shame, or just the uncomfortable recognition of his own reflection. "I always knew you would," he said. Then he paused. His jaw tightened. His eyes filled with something that looked almost like tears. "I'm sorry, Nora. For everything. For all of it." I looked at him. This man who had once been the center of my world, who had once had the power to make me feel small with a single word, who had once held the keys to every door in my life. And I felt nothing. Not anger, not pity, not even satisfaction. Just a quiet, peaceful emptiness where the pain used to be. Just the calm after the storm. "I know you are," I said. "But sorry doesn't unlock doors, Derek. Sorry doesn't give me back the 15 years I spent being invisible. Sorry doesn't make you a different person. Sorry doesn't undo the life insurance policy you took out on me. Sorry doesn't erase the nights I spent crying in the bathroom while you slept soundly in our bed. Sorry is just a word. And words, as you taught me, can be lies." He nodded again. There were tears in his eyes now, real ones maybe, or maybe just the performance of regret, the way he had performed everything else. I would never know, and it didn't matter. "I have to go," I said. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, I know." I walked back to my car, a car I had bought with my own money, from my own gallery, from my own life. I got in. I started the engine. I looked in the rearview mirror one last time. He was standing by the pump, watching me, his hands in his pockets, his shoulders hunched against the cold. He looked small, smaller than I remembered, smaller than he had ever looked when he was standing over me, telling me I was nothing. I drove away without looking back. That was 3 years ago. I am 52 years old now. I own a small art gallery in a neighborhood that used to be dangerous, but is now full of young families and coffee shops, and the kind of hope that comes from people building something new. I have friends who love me. I have a therapist who helped me understand that I was never the problem, that the problem was a man who needed to make me small so he could feel big. I have a dog who sleeps at the foot of my bed and never locks me out of anything. I have a life that is mine, completely and entirely mine, in a way it never was when I was married. And I have a door. A front door with a deadbolt that I installed myself, with my own hands, using tools I bought at a hardware store where no one knew my name and no one cared. Who I used to be. I lock it every night before I go to sleep. Not because I'm afraid, not because I'm waiting for someone to come for me, but because I can. Because it's my choice. Because the sound of that turning key is no longer the sound of someone else's power over me. It is the sound of my own. Sometimes, late at night, when the city is quiet and the dog is snoring and the only light is the soft glow of the street lamp outside my window, I think about that night. The cold, the deadbolt, the long walk through the dark. I think about the woman I was, the woman who stood on that porch in her thin sweater and her wet socks, shivering and afraid and completely alone, and I feel proud of her. Not because she was strong. She wasn't. She was terrified. She was broken. She was ready to give up. But she kept walking. She kept walking even though she didn't know where she was going. She kept walking even though every step hurt. She kept walking because something inside her refused to die. That something is still inside me. It's inside every woman who has ever been locked out, locked down, locked away. It's the thing that survives when everything else is gone. It's the thing that builds galleries and buys cars and installs deadbolts. It's the thing that looks at the man who tried to destroy her and feels nothing but the quiet satisfaction of having outlasted him. Derek was right about one thing. Locking me out was a mistake, but not for the reasons he thought. It wasn't a mistake because I got revenge. It wasn't a mistake because I took his money or his house or his reputation. It was a mistake because, in that moment, he gave me something I had been missing for 15 years, a reason to leave. He gave me a door that was closed, and I gave myself the key. My name is Nora Bennett. I am 52 years old. I own a gallery called The Locked Door, and every night I lock it from the inside with a key that belongs only to me